It's 6 p.m. here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with the headlines. President Park Geun-hye issues a public apology to the Korean people after it's revealed she granted a close aide access to classified documents and even allowed her to modify some of them. The ruling party called for a deeper probe into the incident, while the opposition reacted with anger, calling for the aide involved in the scandal to be summoned immediately. And to make Dokdo Day, Korea releases 2 documents that add to the growing body of evidence countering Japan's claims to the group of islands. We begin at the nation's top office. President Park Geun-hye has offered her deepest apologies to the Korean public regarding the latest scandal. It involves documents that she passed to her former aide Choi Soon-sil. The president also allowed Choi to modify the documents reportedly. Let's go over to our presidential office correspondent, Song Ji-sun, for the details. Ji-sun, a big response was expected from the top office after a new report on the case came out last night.
That's right, Daniel. It was prompt and very surprising because the president mainly uses the president briefing hall for her annual beginning of the year speeches, and she makes very rare appearances here. Now, the scandal broke open last night when Korean TV station JTBC reported that the president's longtime aide Choi Soon-sil seemed to have received and edited some of the president's speeches before the events for which the speeches were designated. The president began her statement by expressing her sincerest apologies to the people, saying that politicians tend to ask for a variety of opinions during election campaigns, and it was the same in her case. Here's her explanation.
최순실 씨는 과거 제가 어려움을 겪을 때 도와준 인연으로 지난 대선 때 주로 연설이나 홍보 등의 분야에서 저의 선거 운동이 국민들에게 어떻게 전달되는지에 대해 개인적인 의견이나 소감을 전달해 주는 역할을 하였습니다.
The president says she continued to seek Choi's help even after her inauguration, but added that she stopped seeking Choi's advice after her secretaries were installed at the top office.
저로서는 좀 더 꼼꼼하게 챙겨보고자 하는 순수한 마음으로 한 일인데 이유 여하를 막론하고 국민 여러분께 심려를 끼치고 놀라고 마음 아프게 해드린 점에 대해 송구스럽게 생각합니다. 국민 여러분께 깊이 사과드립니다.
After bowing to the camera, she left without taking questions from the press. The case has been the source of controversy in recent days and revolves around allegations that Choi used her ties to the president to solicit donations from conglomerates for 2 government-linked foundations in a very short period of time. There are also allegations that Choi's daughter's college admission and credits were not entirely above board. And now, as for how the documents were reached and edited by Choi Soon-sil, the president's press officers told reporters that the top office is looking into the case and that the president wanted to clear out her suspicions and communicate with the public regarding their disappointment and doubts. Daniel?
All right, thank you for staying out there for us, Chitana. Do keep the updates coming, and I'm sure that any words related with the so-called Choi Soon-sil scandal or Choi Soon-sil gate will continue to flood the internet, the airwaves, and headlines over the news programs around the nation. And it is, of course, capturing everyone's attention here in Korea and could leave a permanent blemish on the president and her administration's legacy. And now we go over to the parliament, where our National Assembly correspondent Park Ji-won is standing by to give us the updates from there. Ji-won, what are the responses from the parties right now?
Hello, Daniel. Well, the nation's 3 main political parties each held their own press conferences here at the National Assembly, and all 3 of them, including the president's ruling Saenuri Party, called for a more thorough investigation into the breach related to the presidential documents. The ruling Saenuri party expressed deep regret about the incident and offered an apology as a ruling party. The party added that a more thorough investigation should be conducted to dig into the case after taking some follow-up measures and gathering party members' opinions. The main opposition Democratic Party of Korea said the president's apology was not nearly enough. It said that what the public wanted to know and see was the president's determination to investigate the matter to prevent a recurrence of similar events and to punish those responsible, not just a simple apology with excuses. The Liberal Party said the president doesn't seem to understand the gravity of the matter and called for a swift and thorough prosecutional investigation into every related official. The minor opposition People's Party agreed that the president's apology was not enough and said she didn't clarify anything about her ties to Choi Soon-sil. The party also said that President Park doesn't seem to understand what sharing classified documents with an individual who doesn't hold an official position at the presidential office is a serious matter. It warned that if the president doesn't clarify the matter, she won't be able to mitigate the public's anger. And that's all I have for now, and I will have more updates in a later newscast. Back to you, Daniel.
All right, Jiwon, thank you for those updates. The responses from both sides clearly indicating the gravity of the situation reaching a boiling point right now. And now let's sidestep and move on to a different story. While it's still yet to be determined who will be the next leader of the United States, senior military officials there agreed he or she should prioritize national security amid continued North Korean provocations. Our Kim Hyun-bin tells us more.
The secretaries of the U.S. Army, Air Force, and Navy have voiced their concerns about the increasing nuclear and missile threats posed by North Korea. In an interview with the Center for a New American Security on Monday, they emphasized the next U.S. president needs to ensure preparedness against those threats. U.S. Secretary of the Army, Eric Fanning, said Pyongyang is becoming increasingly threatening and unpredictable, adding that Washington's ability to deal with any eventuality is a very important part of the calculus. His counterpart for the Navy, Ray Mabus, also called for solid preparedness, stressing that North Korea is just one of many threats facing the United States, and the next administration has to be ready to face them on day one. He said the U.S. has already forward deployed troops in South Korea and Japan in case of a crisis. Mabus said there are ground troops in South Korea, and Japan has strategic military assets in the region, including an aircraft carrier, and there are plans to deploy additional destroyers if need be. Air Force Secretary Deborah Lee James added that reviewing the United States' nuclear weapons in terms of status and when they could be used in the future is another prime task for the next administration. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Japan is considering ways to minimize its business transactions with nations that have close dealings with North Korea. Kwon So-ah fills us in on Tokyo's latest efforts to optimize the effectiveness of sanctions on the Kim Jong-un regime.
Japan is stepping up its efforts on the sanctions front with the hope of cutting off North Korea's financial resources and thus curbing the regime's nuclear and missile ambitions. Tokyo-based Kyodo News Agency on Tuesday quoted a Japanese government source who said Tokyo is reviewing whether to impose trade restrictions on foreign companies that aid Pyongyang by either hiring workers from North Korea or engaging in direct trade with the North. The regime has profited by selling its laborers to other countries, and Japan believes those funds are being directly channeled into North Korea's nuclear and missile programs. According to Kyodo, Chinese companies located near the border with North Korea are being closely monitored. Tokyo is said to be expecting a protest from Beijing against further independent sanctions by Japan. This comes amid speculation that a senior Chinese official, Vice Foreign Minister Liu Jung-min, who arrived in Pyongyang on Monday for talks with North Korean officials, could be in negotiations with the North on nuclear and sanctions-related matters. According to Japan's Asahi Shimbun newspaper, China's goal could be to gather information on the North's next provocations while also notifying Pyongyang about what Beijing and Washington have been discussing so far regarding additional sanctions on the regime. Seoul's foreign ministry said Tuesday that China has been consistent on the strict implementation of UN Security Council Resolution 2270, but South Korea is closely monitoring the Chinese diplomat's trip.
China has expressed its will to participate in drawing up new sanctions for the North's fifth nuclear test. With regard to Germany's visit, we believe there has been no change in China's stance.
The foreign ministry pointed out that South Korea is also discussing unilateral sanctions, but just like Japan, Seoul is contemplating the timing of the announcement by monitoring the UN Security Council's ongoing discussions. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Lotte Group Chair Shin Dong-bin takes a deep bow to issue a public apology. This comes a week after Shin and several of his family members were indicted by Seoul prosecutors for financial irregularities. Kwon Jang-woo updates us on the continued family feud and legal investigation that has cast a dark cloud over the retail giant.
Appearing alongside 23 CEOs of Lotte Group affiliates, Shin Dong-bin gave a long bow and apologized to the Korean public.
I apologize for the worries that have been caused by the recent prosecutorial investigation amid the ongoing power struggle at the company over the last year. I feel we have not met the standards expected by the people and society.
With the apology, Shin announced a series of reforms to the group's corporate structure. He pledged to invest some $35 billion over the next 5 years in the restructuring effort and hire 70,000 new staff. He also announced plans to establish a compliance committee, which will bring in outside experts to help the group be more socially responsible. Shin also said the company will push for Hotel Lotte to be listed as soon as possible. This statement comes after a similar apology and reform announcements were made just 14 months ago, when the power struggle with Shin's brother Dong-ju for the country's fifth largest conglomerate was aired in public, and things have only escalated since. Last week, after a 4-month investigation by Seoul prosecutors, Shin and several of his family members, along with 14 sitting and former Lotte executives, were charged with embezzlement and tax evasion. Those indicted include Shin's estranged brother Dong-ju and his father and company founder Shin Gyuk-ho. Prosecutors said investigations found evidence of financial irregularities amounting to $330 million. Seoul courts rejected requests to detain Shin and the others involved in the case, so until the trial starts, all eyes will be on whether Lotte will be able to recover. Kwon Jang-woo, Arirang News.
The OECD will change its 2017 growth forecast for the Korean economy. In an interview with Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency, Secretary General Angel Korea said the global body plans to revise its most recent outlook of 3% growth, as the new projection will depend heavily on the outlook for world trade. He added weak global trade in the first half could adversely affect Korea's economy. The revision will be reflected in the OECD Economic Outlook report to be released next month. Korea's growth rate has been rooted in the 2% range since 2011, faced with weak exports, rising household debt, and other economic uncertainties. Korea will launch an over-the-counter stock market for promising startups to help them receive investments more easily. According to the Korea Exchange, the KRX startup market will focus more on tech-intensive startups than markets associated with unlisted large and mid-sized firms. Slated to open November 14th, it's expected to garner investor interest in startups that have outstanding business ideas or advanced technology with growth potential. KRX officials say the new market is aimed at serving as a springboard for startups to be listed on stock exchanges such as the Connex and Kosdaq. Market watchers say, however, the new market needs to differentiate itself from other OTC markets to succeed. Today, October 25th, is a special day for Koreans as the country marks Dokdo Day. To commemorate the occasion, the Independence Hall of Korea has publicized 2 historical documents that show Japan did not consider the easternmost island its territory at that time. For details, let's turn to our Yoon Shin.
This is a Japanese geography textbook for junior high school students that was used in 1912. The map on this page shows Ulleungdo Island and Dokdo Island. But the map on another page showing areas close to Dokdo that were under Japanese jurisdiction at the time clearly excludes Dokdo from Japanese territory. Japan has since claimed that Dokdo was incorporated into the area in 1905, 7 years before the textbook was published. But there is no indication of that on this map.
I would say that is because Dokdo was widely known to be part of Ulleungdo Island. It was known as Joseon Dynasty territory, even in geographical studies by Japan.
Dokdo is also missing from a map published in 1946 as part of an article by Japan's Asahi Picture News, a segment of the Asahi Shimbun newspaper. This map was designed to show which areas were under Japanese jurisdiction after World War II. An explanation says, quote, changes in Japanese territory have been made, as indicated on the map due to the nation accepting the terms of surrender laid out in the Potsdam Declaration. And Dokdo Island is not part of the map. Japan continues, to this day, to make false territorial claims to Dokdo. But the two new documents released by the Independence Hall of Korea add to the already overwhelming body of historical evidence showing that Dokdo is Korean territory. Shin, Arirang News.
That's all from me for now, but stick around for more domestic news updates for our viewers in Korea coming right up. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for staying with us. I'm Devin Whiting with more of your domestic news. The Korean economy has extended its sluggish growth in the 0% range into a fourth consecutive quarter. That's adding to concerns, that the country could be headed for a low growth trap as policymakers run out of options. Kim In-ji reports.
Korea's economic growth has remained in the 0% range for 4 straight quarters, fueling concerns that the country may be headed for a prolonged cycle of low growth. The Bank of Korea estimates the country's GDP rose 0.7% in the July to September period from the quarter before. Although modest, it has slowed from the 0.8% recorded in the second quarter.
Third quarter growth was mainly led by construction investment, domestic consumption and government spending. Domestic consumption contributed 1.3 percentage points to GDP growth, while government spending contributed 0.2 percentage points.
Breaking it down by category, construction investment rose almost 4%, picking up from 3.1% in the second quarter. Government spending rose 1.4% from 0.1%, thanks in part to the implementation of the government's budget supplement. Private spending slowed, dipping below 1% due to the end of a tax cut program for consumption. Facilities investment fell 0.1% from 2.8% growth in the second quarter. Further stoking concerns are lingering uncertainties which are expected to take a toll on already feeble growth figures down the line.
Fourth quarter growth is expected to dip further due to an anti-graft law that took effect, as well as a prolonged strike in the auto industry and the recall crisis of the Galaxy Note 7, which will hurt the manufacturing sector. The negative impact may carry over to the first quarter of next year.
On top of that, experts don't see much room for more expansionary measures as they may hurt the country's fiscal soundness, and the BOK will likely put monetary easing on hold as it waits to assess the impact of a looming U.S. rate hike. With that, many foresee a tough road ahead in reaching the government's growth target of 2.8% for this year, and instead see the economy expanding in the mid 2% range. Kim In-ji, Arirang News.
Now, Korean students hoping to go to university will sit for a make-or-break exam on November 17th. That's the College Scholastic Ability Test. To clear the rush hour traffic on the big day, the government and major corporations have announced plans to cut working hours. Company employees and civil servants will be allowed to come into work an hour later than usual at 10 a.m., and public transportation services will be increased. At Monday's cabinet meeting, the Ministry of Education reported that nearly 606,000 people, mostly graduating high school seniors, will take the CSAT at nearly 1,200 test sites across the nation. The exam is only given once a year. The ministry also announced it will coordinate with the Korea Meteorological Administration to make sure alerts are sent out as soon as possible in case of an earthquake, especially near Gyeongju in the nation's southeast, where multiple earthquakes and aftershocks have hit since last month. It'll soon be flu season, and that means for many people it's time to get vaccinated. Public health clinics offer discounted or free vaccines for certain at-risk groups, but demand for flu jabs at the nation's public health clinics is outpacing supply. To take, for example, Cheongju City in Chungcheongbuk-do Province, a city of about 890,000 people, Yonhap News reports its public clinics are expected to have gone through their entire stock of vaccines by tomorrow. In theory, free shots are available for people 65 years or older, those with certain disabilities, and children up to 5 years old. Priority is given to infants and those with heart or lung conditions or diabetes, and pregnant women. Those not in those groups can still get vaccinated at a discount at public health clinics while supplies last for a charge of 8,000 won. And those are some of the stories we're following right now. Thanks for watching. More coming up at 8 p.m. Korea time. Bye for now.